Manic and Chill, we're back.
2 weeks in a row.
15 days. Yeah,
2 weeks in a row.
no, technically, if you look at when that last one got actually released. So, yeah.
That's what I'm saying, 2 weeks in a row. So, finally, we're keeping our word. So Manic and Chill, very important episode. So much breaking news. It's really not, but I thought it'd be fun to jump on and just bullshit about BS about some of the ongoing news. I don't want to lose the E for everyone that DLF has on their YouTube channel. That would be awkward. Yep. So please don't comment below about that if anyone heard
50 seconds, Addison. 50 seconds. No, man, there's been a lot that's happened over the last, week, 10 days that at least hasn't been real news, but it's news that's affected Dynasty. So we said we'll just jump on and do a quick episode to get some takes. So where do you want to start?
Well, I don't know if you heard.
I haven't heard anything over the last 3 days. What's happened?
Apparently, Cam Akers has torn his Achilles. And I don't want to talk about it specifically, him, because I've literally heard 39 podcasts in a day and a half with their varying takes on it. Yours being the best. You immediately put it out. You stopped working and put out a Dynasty and Chill patron episode. We appreciate that. I'm wondering about the ramifications of it, or what are lessons learned? Because we saw some people doing happy dances on Twitter about this is why you shouldn't have drafted Cam at 107 or wherever you drafted him because they're psychic. And we've also seen people do happy dances on Twitter because of this is why you handcuff running backs, right? Right.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, it hit me because I have a lot of, Cam Akers on my teams, but I think the bigger picture is this could happen at any point. I mean, this was a random weekday, middle of the early afternoon, late morning. I can't remember exactly what time the news broke, but I think it was late morning, but then what do you do? You know what I mean? And I think the Dynasty community, we've talked about this before, but the Dynasty community has gotten a lot sharper. Like they get this news right away. So there are takes out there right away. You know what I mean? The next day I refresh my podcast feed and it's like 30 podcasts that all have the title Cam Akers, something to do with the Rams or Cam Akers. What does this mean? Strategy. So I think that's why I put the Patreon episode out, was basically this is what I'm doing right away. I took 10 minutes to think it through and just went with it. You got to have conviction, and I think it did pay off. But I mean, what do you learn from this? I think one thing is, don't even the running backs that are being drafted as high as they are, they are so fragile. I mean, and this being an Achilles injury, I mean, just to kind of share a little bit what my take was on Cam Akers, I think it's so bad because it happened between his first and second year. This is the value peak for these running backs, year 2 going into year 3. That's where they peak. That's the years where if you can sell these players, that's where everyone covets them, right? That's where everyone wants to get their hands on these running backs because they figure they have a couple years worth of cheap contracts. They don't have to worry about their situation for at least a couple years. Now that's gone. I mean, this year's gone. I think it's fair to say with what we know about Achilles injuries, he may be back next year. Next year's gone in terms of him being an impactful running back. I've seen people say, well, he can recover from this injury and play next year. That's fine. But if he plays next year and he gives you the name we threw out in the Patreon chat, he gives you a 2022 of what Ronald Jones has given you the last 2 years, right? 230, 225 touches, RB 24, 25. Do you care about that?
No.
So, and I would say if he comes back and he's healthy and he can give you 250 touches, you'd take that that's probably one of the top 10% outcomes right now, right? You'd get 250 touches from him in 2022. You'd just take that. If you have him and you said you could do that, you may just take that, given what we're looking at with the Achilles injury. And I'm that's the best case scenario for 2 years? Then what? I mean, you played Dynasty long enough, Shane. What happens in year 4 after that? What is he?
Well,
he's a year 4 running back with a history of an Achilles injury. Is anyone going to really want him? I mean,
yeah. Well, here's the thing. So, we saw the trend last year. I put out an article last year about how running backs die after the age of 25, usually. But what we saw immediately after I wrote that article as a big FU from the NFL to me was they went, well, guess what? We're giving running backs second contracts now. So good luck with that. So it'll be interesting to watch because, one, we're going to have more data points on those guys, second contract running backs, right? I guess we're using Marlon Mack now as the litmus test for Cam Akers too, I keep hearing. So if Marlon Mack comes back successful, apparently Cam Akers can. Or if he doesn't, then that means Cam Akers can't. I think, unfortunately, the sample size it's incredibly small. But we just know what the Achilles does. I don't feel like naming all the names of the running backs that got injured because most of them weren't good to begin with, or they were past being good.
There isn't a good sample size. We don't have a history of an elite stud with the profile of Cam Akers that's ever had this injury, because if they had, they would have stayed in the NFL. We would have had a sample size. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I don't know that we've ever even had, because the closest thing we had to even a good player was Mikal LaShore. And I don't remember enough about him, but I remember enough about him to know that he wasn't elite.
Yep.
Like people thought Cam was. People thought he's a top 10 back. I mean, he was a top 7 back up until 3 days ago. So I get the inclination to be like, all right, he's dead. But I think if I'm going to risk it, it's probably going to be on someone like him. He's 21 years old. Even worst case scenario, next year, say he does come back and he's just a shell of himself. That still means he's probably 23, 24, and he could still give you another season or two of production. Now, it's all dependent on cost, right? I'm not paying a first probably, unless I have a bunch of firsts. But if I can get someone that's depressed, because it's been a couple of days that the market's been out there, and we've seen a couple of our patrons note that they should have sold already because now the market's already falling more. If I can get him for some seconds, I'm going to take that risk, I think. If I could trade him for Henderson straight up, I think I would trade Henderson straight up for him. And that's not, I was probably as big as a Henderson guy as there was before Cam's injury, saying he's probably going to eat into his work a little bit, but I don't know that he's a legit one. I'd probably want more back. I don't know who I'm kidding. I'd probably want Akers in a second to give up Henderson because I have you over the barrel, and that's probably the smart move. I think the one thing I'm taking away from this is stop making reactionary moves. Like anyone out there today that's buying Henderson, just stop it unless you're getting him for a second, but you're not. Stop. Don't make offers for Henderson. I should not see any trades on my timeline, and I have coming across my MFL notifications of people making trades for Henderson. What are you doing? Don't do that. That just shows me, I don't want to put it like this. This shows me you don't think very proactively there. That's better than saying that I think you're stupid. That just shows me that you make really bad moves in dynasty football if you're trading for Henderson today.
Well, and that's a lot of that's one of my biggest observations, because what happened was basically the news broke. I sat there, I thought about, okay, what does this mean? Because I think the thing that people don't think about before they make these moves is Cam Akers was a top 15 startup player, even in Superflex. He was one of the first 4, 5, 6 running backs going off the board. So after the run of quarterbacks, it's like people typically picked running backs. So he comfortably a Superflex top 20 or higher startup player. Also going into his second year, which means if he goes out and smashes this year, he has a trajectory that could have been Dalvin Cook, Christian McCaffrey. Now, if he doesn't, his floor, and this is why this injury is important, his floor, worst case scenario for Akers, Dobbins, Swift, Gibson, any of those guys this year, their floors are Josh Jacobs and Miles Sanders. That's their floor. Both those guys have been so depressed on the market, but they're still top 20 running backs. They're still legitimate starters. Now, Some people like him, some people don't. They both transitioned into that territory this year where it's like, I'm done with Miles Sanders. I'm done with Josh Jacobs. Part of that's an overreaction because it's like, well, they didn't ascend to that elite level. They've just basically leveled off. So I don't want them anymore. I don't seek them out. That's how the dynasty market is now. Like if you don't have the next big thing and they don't become the next big thing when you thought they would, they kind of just level off or they go down. That doesn't mean their profile got any worse. The points they put up might not got any worse. But part of their marketability is down. You know, Josh Jacobs could have the same stats for the next 2 years as he's had the first 2 years. People want him less now than they did last year. I mean, that's just a fact. So that's the big thing with Cam Akers. Right. I don't even care if he comes back from this injury. There is a permanent stain on his profile that you will never be able to erase. He does not have enough time as a running back, even though you pointed out guys are getting second contracts. Think about this. So my advice was, Shane, if I can get any first in the next 2 years for Cam Akers, I'm out. Spammed. I spammed every league I had him for a first. Done. I don't even care where it is. I don't care the format. Whether it's start 9, start 10, 11, whatever it is, I'm taking a first and walking away because that gives me a liquid asset that I can move around the board. You never know what I can buy with that first. I might be able to cash it in and get something just as good, or I wait and use it as a pick next year. But I guess I would ask you this. Let's say you're on the other end, because I think a lot of people have said sell Akers, sell Akers. I've seen some people buying though. So he's out for 2021, right? Okay. 2022, let's just say he comes back and he's like a starter. Like he handles half the workload. Like we would take that, right? As from what we've seen from these injuries, we would take them coming back and being a part of a 50-50 committee backfield where you handle half the work. Okay. Let's say he goes out and does well. You know, he's a top 30 running back, and most of that's just because he doesn't get enough total volume to be higher. You know, they kind of limit his workload a little bit, which I think is expected coming off this type of injury. They're not just going to give him 330 touches probably off his injury. Okay. So now he's going into year 4. What are you paying? I can tell you the best outcome over the next 2 years is he comes back and he has a 250 touch season in year 2 after the injury. Are you paying a first plus after that?
No, sir.
Okay, so you're basically saying there's never going to be a point. Now, let's say he went out 2 years removed from the injury and he was a top 10 back. Going into year 5, would you pay a first plus?
Year 5, that puts him at age 20.
So he's like Joe Mixon right now. Same range. Like you'd buy for a first, but you're not giving up multiples, right?
I'm not giving up multiple firsts for Joe Mixon, and that's or anyone in that tier. I'm not giving up multiple firsts for Miles Sanders, who again I love. Josh Jacobs. Cam Akers falls back into that tier. He falls back into me, he was anyway, but he falls back more into the replaceable player pool than the Jonathan Taylor pool, than the Justin Jefferson pool, than the AJ Brown, DK Metcalf pool of guys that I'm like, all right, these are difference makers. Now he's just he could be a good top 12 back, but that's not really that hard to get.
So year 2 he's out. Let's say year 3, because of total workload, he's only a top 24 running back. Then in year 4, where you still aren't really wanting to buy in because you're not sure if he has a ceiling because all he did was top 24. You don't know how much work he can handle. Year 4, he posts a top 12 season. Okay. Well, then he's a year 5 running back, and he has to battle with the fact that he's a year 5 running back that had an Achilles injury. So he's never going to be able to get over this. No. So I guess I looked at it like this. I dumped all my shares. I traded 5 out of 7. I still have 2. But the idea being there is going to be an opportunity to get him back if you ever feel convicted enough to get him back. Now, you may have to pay the same price you got rid of him for today. So it's a neutral, net neutral. You know, you buy him for a first in 2 years. But the opportunity will be there. He will never be an untouchable player. He will never be a first-plus player again. Again, this is my opinion. So if I know that trajectory, why would I hold him? Why would I?
Not only that, and you also get the utility of whatever that asset was for the next year or 2.
I can either bank it or turn it into points, so it doesn't sit dead on my roster for 2 years holding him. I can use it. That's a great point. Like I have now flexibility where I can either score points with what I got back or use it to buy points or use it to bank for another player. That's huge. I mean, the time loss here is huge. If you say I can't feel confident that I'm going to be able to start this guy for maybe 2 more years, that's a lot of time to just waste that spot. So the worst thing you can almost do is not shop him and just kind of hold him on IR. You know what I mean? Like you got to play the market and determine what side you're on. But I just, the only path he has now is that he bucks the trend, returns from the injury, and is usable for your team. I've had the 2 leagues I haven't sold him. Guess what? The 6 or 7 trade responses I've got thus far are, I'm not interested in a guy with an Achilles. They're just not interested. So you may just never have any interest. He's a player people just may not want again.
And I don't feel any urgency to try to even buy him right now. None at all. And I mean, also because I don't want to insult people with my offer because my offers are going to be low. I already know it. I'm going to offer you James Robinson for Cam Akers. Probably.
And I think that's a legitimate offer.
Now that I say that out loud, I probably will offer you less than that. Now, right. At least James Robinson has at least top 15, 20 potential in him, even with ETN there. Like for all we know, that could turn to the New Orleans situation with Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara. So never mind. I'm sorry if anyone thought I was going to offer them James Robinson. I got to pull that back. That's a little too much. Maybe DJ Chark. All right, you'll take that. You'll give me Akers for DJ Chark.
I think you just hit on a good point because we start going through, and the problem is we're still a month away from really even knowing anything in terms of what these teams are going to look like. That's when we're going to finally maybe get something concrete to put down on paper and say, okay, this is what I think the depth chart's going to be, that kind of stuff. I think it's really hard. One thing I was talking about with one of our patrons was I think it's actually really hard now in 2021 Dynasty to actually sell running backs that are not in this range of like the unattainable range. Like I've had a lot of trouble selling even usable running backs. So the idea of giving those guys away, the idea of giving away James Robinson for Cam Akers, it's like, you may hate James Robinson, but you're going, well, I know what James Robinson is. Like
and here's something actionable. Before you send an offer, say it out loud. Because when you hear yourself say it snaps you back into reality, man. Because that would have been an offer I would have sent and then immediately gone, holy what? And then revoked it. And then I would have looked really confused to the other owners. Say it out loud. Say it out loud.
Yeah.
So you can hear what it sounds like.
I mean, Myles Gaskin or Cam Akers.
Oh, and you know how low I am on Myles Gaskin. I mean,
you mentioned last episode selling all these Mike Davis, Chase Edmonds, Myles Gaskin, like,
I will take every one of those guys you just named except Mike Davis over him.
Okay.
Because I can still get a second for Cam Akers. I in my heart believe I can at least get a second no matter what the news is. Or if at that point I might as well just hold and hope that he's an outlier. Like you said, just hold him for 2 years or next year and just hope, hey, maybe he bounces back. And if he's a guy that never regains his trade value, at least he'll just be someone I can run out there, kind of like a old wide receiver, like an Adam Thielen type. Like I know I can't trade this guy for anything, but I can at least plug him in my lineup if my team's competitive.
Cam Akers or Michael Carter? I know you don't like you got to go Michael Carter though, because there's a much easier path for him.
And that's why I put my head down because I don't ever want to say Michael Carter.
It's
never Michael Carter. But in this case, I'd have to take Michael Carter. But you know what? And then I'd immediately flip Michael Carter.
Right. But you can flip Michael Carter. You may not be able to flip Cam Akers.
Right. All right. So another thing that's been bothering me for the last 12 hours, Jalen Hurts, the Eagles, and the Deshaun Watson noise that refuses to go away. It will not go away. And I got to put this out there. There's all these small fires out there about how Deshaun Watson's going to end up with the Eagles. It's beat reporters. It's Peter King's. It's Adam Schefter's. Not actually reporting on anything, but saying, well, this makes sense. But there's that groundswell, and that's if it's affecting my thought process on Jalen Hurts, it's probably affecting other people's thought processes on Jalen Hurts. Now, you're still of the mindset that you hold him and nothing's really changed. Like he Watson's not going to be there. And if Watson is, he'll probably be suspended. So Hurts is going to get some run. What's your thought on this?
Well, we were kind of talking about this. We were kind of hashing through what this would mean from a timeline perspective. And the last Dynasty and Chill with Mitch, we talked to Jalen Hurts for like 10 minutes at the end of the episode. And we just talked about how polarizing he is, because he literally has the upside to be a top 4, top 6 quarterback, but he also has the downside to literally not make it through the season as the starter. Now, I think he's going to make it through the season as long as they don't have anything crazy that happens. Like, I don't think he's going to lose starts at some point to Joe Flacco. Like, no, something like that's not going to happen. But, you know, you're an Eagles fan. Like, from an outsider's perspective that doesn't follow the team every day, that's not, you know, in the trenches like I am with my own team, I just look at the situation as like they are stacking the deck against him so high, and they've already prepared for next year with loading up on the draft picks. Like, they've set themselves up to be able to move on from Jalen Hurts, and they're stacking the deck. You know, it doesn't even matter how good he plays. He could have a top 6 fantasy season, but they can probably find a couple numbers and go, well, he really wasn't good at that. And ultimately, you know, just scoreboard, man, you know, we're 5-12. And he can sit there and go like, well, I'm not the reason we're 5-12. You know what I mean? Like, I'm probably a 9-8 quarterback, but the team sucks and we're 5-12. And you're now blaming me because I'm the quarterback, when in reality, he might have a top, even from an NFL standpoint. I'm not just talking fantasy. I'm talking like an NFL standpoint. He could grade out to be like a top 20 quarterback. And the Eagles go, no, see ya. Yeah, we're going to. And my biggest fear with Jalen Hurts is I want to buy Jalen Hurts. Right? Like, I want to buy and go like, you know what? I'll take the top 12 season. Then I'll worry about it next year, especially at the price that he's going at right now. But my biggest fear is, let's say they bring in Watson, okay? And let's just assume Watson doesn't play in 2021. So there's a lot that has to happen in the next 6 weeks for him to literally be like a starting quarterback this year. One, you trade for Watson anytime before next summer or next spring. Like, we heard the Dolphins rumor, the same thing. Like, don't you just completely undermine the starter right now if you trade for Watson? I mean, like,
he's done. He's done.
Even if you say Jalen Hurts is the starter,
it doesn't
like,
matter.
It's Watson sitting over here like, yeah, Deshaun's coming back next year. You know what I mean? Like, you're out.
You've given up at least 2 firsts to get Watson. So there's no narrative you can spin about it being an open competition or any of that, because no one will buy it. Not on that roster and not in the fantasy world.
Well, and here's my fear. This is my biggest fear of the teams that I've invested heavily in Hurts in. And this is worst case scenario for Dynasty. Eagles trade for Watson. Okay. And even if he's suspended, let's say that he doesn't even resolve anything and he's just out for 2021. But the Eagles go, you know what? We can get him for 2 firsts right now. Let's do it. Instead of maybe 4 firsts next year, when there might be 10 other teams that want him. And maybe he's put some of this stuff behind him. And it's like, okay, now you're trading for like the real 100% value Deshaun Watson. Like, let's buy him now and take the risk that we're going to get him next year. You know, let's just eat this year. I actually think there's a lot of Eagles fans that would say, do that. You know what I mean? Get him. Who cares? We'll worry about it next year.
Yeah. But there's also
my fear with this is this, though. Let's say the Eagles do that, but then Hurts also plays well. Haven't the Eagles said they love having a good backup? And they go, well, Jalen Hurts, he's good. We like him. He's a great leader, great character. You know, he's going to back up Deshaun for a couple years. Or, hey, we'll trade Jalen Hurts. But look what he did. You know, look at those numbers he put up this year. We want a first, maybe a first plus. And today's NFL, the teams will laugh at you trying to get a first for Jalen Hurts when they can just draft another Jalen Hurts. So, worst case scenario is he plays well, they replace him with Watson, and then they bury him as the backup for 2 years. And you basically lose 2 real valuable years. You know what I mean? That's my biggest fear for Dynasty. You have any other thoughts?
No, now you just put a new fear in me. I mean, you know, I was 100% okay with the whole Jalen Hurts has this year to prove himself. Because, you know, I had the same thinking as you. Like, I got him relatively cheap in most leagues relative to other quarterbacks. And the upside there is just top 5 running a quarterback. I mean, it's there. And then I could do whatever I wanted at the end of the year. I thought I'd have at least this season to get to that point. And all the Deshaun Watson noise is scaring me that I might not even have that. So now I'm wondering, do I just wait another few days, let it settle down, let people forget about the latest Deshaun Watson tweet from, whatever local celebrity or national news writer, and then try to see what I can do with Hurts. And, I put it out in the one patron chat of ours and just asked them, like, well, what do you think, guys, is a good pivot from Jalen Hurts? But we might have viewers. I guess we have viewers. Yeah. What do you think would be, if you were going to pivot, you're just hell bent on it. You're like, look, I can't deal with this uncertainty. I'm moving them. What do you think is a doable pivot?
Man, I've struggled to think of, even when I was talking about this with Mitch, I was struggling to think of ways you can even go about buying Jalen Hurts, because the team that has him is probably, he's one of those players where both sides have a really strong argument of, maybe why the deal should go in their favor. You know what I mean? Like, we just pointed out so many things that could be risky for him. The other crappy thing about the Jalen Hurts situation is, if they were, let's say they were to trade for Watson, but he didn't play next year, you're not even going to be able to move him in the midst of a top 12 season. You know what I mean? People are just going to view it as, well, it's almost like he's got 1 year left. It's almost like the manager that's going to just quit the league after the year. You know what I mean? Like, everyone already sees that coming. You'd rather it not happen until the spring, because at least there's a little intrigue. But I think the way the Dynasty community reacts now and how much information is out there, we talked about this a few episodes ago when we were talking quarterbacks. Like, the Eagles' rumors about them replacing Hurts are not going to stop, no matter what he does. So that's going to be milked into his value.
Well,
So
the only thing that stops it is they don't trade for Watson, right? And he goes out there and they win 9 games. They
got to get to the playoffs or threaten to get in the playoffs, right?
They've got at least 9 games. They need, and they also need, at that point, because their pick's fairly low, right? Not high. It's not a great pick. And they also need the Colts still to make the playoffs, so that the pick they get from the Colts is high or low, bad, whatever, in the 20s. Like, basically they need 2 of the 3 picks that they could have next year to be in the 20s. Miami's, unless, that's a smokescreen, there's no way that's going to be an early pick. I can't imagine that's anything before 18 or 19. So that's literally the only way, is somehow they don't trade for Watson. He drags them to the playoffs or near playoffs. And then all the picks they have next year are 20, 22, 26, because that's not going to get you into the top 5 for a starting quarterback in the NFL.
Well, and even if there's one of those picks that's like 10th and another one 18th, like, you still have the ammo to move up, seeing where some of the quarterbacks, this could be one of those polarizing quarterback classes that has 5 or 6 guys. I think the thing is, with this upcoming quarterback class too, there's like 4 or 5 guys that are the prototypes of Jalen Hurts. So it's just, you just laid out like 3 arguments additionally to what I said. Was I don't see the path ever being clear enough to where his value matches up where I want to pay the sticker price. I'd actually rather wait if there's something majorly negative that happens. Like, let's say they acquire Watson, okay? And they say Watson's going to be out 2021. Like, that's when I may pay a little bit above market for Jalen Hurts and just bet, because now all I'm betting on is Jalen Hurts. If he's good, maybe there's a market for him to go somewhere else. But I'm just afraid that the way the teams treat the quarterbacks now, like, I don't think teams are into trading multiple firsts for quarterbacks that are not proven to be like really, really damn good. Why would I give a first for Jalen Hurts when I can draft the QB5 next year that probably has some element of exactly what I'd be trading for Jalen Hurts? And I'm wasting 2 of the 4 years he'd be on a cheap contract. That's another thing. So, and why would the Eagles trade him away?
Well, so here's best case scenario, right?
Okay.
Best case scenario, we've already laid out. He drags them to the near playoffs, right?
Yep.
Or he's included in a trade to the Texans. Now, the Texans are a little bit of a dumpster fire, but he's at least gets to be a starter there. And if he gets traded to the Texans along with the capital, there's a good chance. That's a problem, is then the very next year they'll have the draft capital and they could replace Hurts too. But he'd at least still have the chance again where you're betting on him and at least getting a chance for him to have a year to prove himself. So there is that out too, that he gets included in any trade that includes Watson.
Well, let's hash that out real quick, because here's the issue. If you told me right now the Eagles were going to trade for Watson, okay, and they have to give up Jalen Hurts and 2 firsts, okay, right now, but Watson's out for 8 games. That is the Eagles punting the season. Will they do that?
Yeah. I mean, because here's the thing. They had their own, they gave up their own first, right? I'm assuming that would be their own first included.
I think the idea is if Watson was starting, if Watson was starting week 1, I don't think they'd have a problem putting Hurts in the deal. If it's me and I'm the Texans, I don't want Jalen Hurts. I don't want him counting as anything I'm having to take back. Now, the Texans haven't been the smartest organization, so they may say, okay, we want Jalen Hurts. You know, he's from the area. That would make some sense. You know what I mean? Like, it would make some sense. And from all, you know, I don't want to go down this road, but from all accounts, I've never heard a bad thing about Jalen Hurts from an off the field or character standpoint, which might be not a terrible transition away from Watson. You know what I mean? Kind of like a nice cleansing move for the organization. They get rid of Watson. They bring in Hurts, who no one has anything bad to say about him. But I think they kind of already have that guy. They brought in Tyrod Taylor for that exact reason. So I just don't see them wanting Hurts back in a deal unless they're prepared to give him a full shot at this year. But
well, and that's my thinking is if they, obviously if they trade for him, it's his job. And
but can he defeat the Texans from drafting a quarterback next year?
Well, that's the other issue is then
he can't.
The Texans have the draft capital all of a sudden to go, all right, well, that didn't work out. So there's one out really for him. One out and one out only. He has to exceed expectations as far as passer, not just a runner, which we think he can do. And he has to drag the Eagles to basically the brink of the playoffs, or at least be fighting for a playoff spot in the last 2 to 3 weeks of the season. I don't know that the Eagles are a good enough team for that to happen. Now, if that offensive line stays healthy all year, great. But what are the chances that an offensive line with Jason Kelce, Lane Johnson, and Barrett Brooks is going to stay healthy all year? 2 of those guys have missed multiple weeks, and if not seasons. And, you know, Barrett Brooks has missed, or not Barrett Brooks. He knows his name. Brandon Brooks? Yeah, him. He's missed 2 out of the last 4 seasons or something like that because of injury. I mean, and they're plus 30 years old. So anyway, the odds of it aren't good without digging into the minutia. So I'm feeling less and less good about this, and I got a feeling I might be trading Jalen Hurts straight up for Daniel Jones and like sock puppets.
Well, you know what? That's the issue with both the landing spots for Watson is if it's Miami or if it's Philly, there really isn't a path for either of the quarterbacks that would go back to the Texans. And I'm not even saying the Texans would want a quarterback back. If I'm the Texans, I don't want a quarterback back. I'm already tanking this year. I want draft picks. You know what I mean? I don't want the Dolphins being like, oh, here, you can have Tua, but that counts as that first we were going to give you. No, I'd rather have the draft pick, you know, where I'm at with the Texans. The problem is, like, you don't want a quarterback going to the Texans for the same reason we never wanted to draft Davis Mills, because he's just drawing dead. He doesn't have a legitimate shot to hold off. You know, if the Texans were to trade for Hurts, like, they have what, the 101 plus 2 extra firsts? Like, they're drafting a quarterback. So
here's the thing. The Texans don't even own their own pick next year, do they?
I believe they do.
Look it up.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I thought they did.
A few moments later.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, you're right. They do.
Yeah, I think it's a situation where he just is not there. Neither of them. I don't want to throw Tua in there, but he's been lumped in there by other people that have talked about Miami with similar rumors. Any quarterback that goes to the Texans, they're not going to be able to outrun the stink that they're going to get replaced. So yeah. I don't want any dynasty relevant quarterback going to the Texans if it's somebody that has other paths. And it's really hard because there's no but at the same time, if you're holding Jalen Hurts right now, do you really want to flip him for Daniel Jones? who only has maybe a 1-year outlook too, and not the highest of ceiling for this year.
That's the problem. Is anyone you flip him for is going to have their own warts and question marks, right?
And you get laughed at if you try to go Jalen Hurts to Joe Burrow, Jalen Hurts to Trevor Lawrence. Like,
yeah,
if you're looking at it going, I'm not adding 2 firsts when Jalen Hurts can outscore those guys. That's how you're seeing it as the seller. You know what I mean? Like, you're not giving up the farm to maybe not get the better performance, but you can't have your cake and eat it too.
Here's the thing. You're looking at just like an NFL roster. Well, I'm giving you Jalen Hurts. He counts as something. So I shouldn't have to give you 2 firsts after that then, because if I wanted to just trade for a quarterback straight up, I could hold on to Jalen Hurts and send someone 2 firsts for Kirk Cousins or another, underrated bottom 12, or not bottom 12, but, bottom of the top 12 quarterbacks. I could get Kirk Cousins every day, all week for 2 firsts.
Hurts or Baker Mayfield?
God damn it. I think Baker's so mediocre. At this point,
he's mediocre, but he's probably mediocre for another half dozen years.
Okay, so that's the thinking is, you know what? But if he plays as mediocre as he did last year, or just slightly above that, I know he's a starter. I don't know that Hurts is a starter in 2 years, more than I didn't know that yesterday. So I think I'd have to take Baker, and just for my pride, I would probably ask for at least a 3rd on the back end, just to make me feel better about life.
Hurts or Rodgers?
Aaron. Oh, Aaron Rodgers all day now. Yeah, I'll take it. Look, he's going to give me at least 1 year. I don't know if it's 2021 or 2022. I lean towards 2021. He's going to give me at least elite production, at least 1 more year.
Tannehill
is a good pivot too. I got 2 more years. I think that I can get out of him at least. He's still only 32 years old. He's in an offense that suits him. We've seen it. He's going to put up the numbers. Anyone wants to send me that offer, I accept.
Last one, because I know this is a good one for you, because I think I know the side you're going to be on, but I'm just curious if anything's changed over the last couple months. Hurts versus Watson. And let's say you even have to add a second to the Hurts side.
Yeah, so
kind of like what the Eagles are facing, right?
Yeah, so the problem with this is the longer it goes on, the less it's weird. The less originally, when this started happening, right, one of my main concerns was Watson's going to end up in prison. That feels less likely now. Time has passed. It feels like, just to me, on a like for all I know, the Houston PD or whoever was investigating it is doing an investigation in the background. It just feels like we would have heard something about it, something that would have.
They're either building a hell of a case or they don't have a case.
Very quietly, which is not often, especially when this case was so noisy when it came about. So it feels like this is going to end up in a settlement and maybe an 8-game suspension for Watson. And honestly, before the tweets today from Howard Eskin about the Eagles thinking about trading for Watson, I was actually starting to think, it might not be a bad time to start kicking the tires on Watson again now, because it looks like, again, not that it's nothing, but an 8-game suspension for a 24-year-old quarterback, 25-year-old quarterback. Yeah, look, and I don't have a morals clause on any of my fantasy teams. So all that to say, yeah, I think I'd go Watson there.
Well, it's funny because before the Philly Watson rumors and in the midst of when this stuff just broke, I actually think the Watson owner may have considered a Hurts pivot. You know what I mean? Like, hey, if I can get Hurts and maybe a little something to make me feel good on top, like a second or something like that, like I'm interested just to get out. And it's just crazy how the news cycle just lingers on, and then boom, something like this. And now what I've found is the team that has Watson in my league has probably held for 4 months now, and there's not as many transactions now. It takes more of a convicted stance, either buying or selling, to see a Watson trade. Because if you've held Watson this whole time, you're going, okay, that there's rumors that he may come back and play this year, or as soon as he gets traded, his market will bounce back, because you're going to assume if he gets traded, the NFL team knows he's going to play, right? Like, he's not going to get traded and then 2 days later they go, yep, he's been indicted on this, this, and this. He's going to go to jail. Like, that would be a huge coup. I don't think that's going to happen.
Right.
So as soon as he gets traded, or as soon as there's legitimate rumors from somebody credible that he's being shopped, like there's offers being made, his dynasty value is going to bounce back to 90% of what it was. Like he may not exceed Dak, Herbert, Lamar, just because like you already know what those guys are. But he's right back into the top 8, top 9 easily, and you're not going to be able to get him anymore. So.
Yeah, that's the thing. If you're going to make the move, you got to do it now. Or you had to do it yesterday. Probably not now.
You got to pay probably 20% more than you did a week ago, but it's still possible to do it.
A week ago was the day to make the move, but unfortunately, Addison didn't let us record, so we couldn't talk about it last week. So I blame Addison. All right, man, I could chill. So we went a little bit longer than we wanted to, but it's still good. 40 minutes for us. That's pretty.
We hit two pretty heavy topics too.
Yeah,
so.
That's pretty brief. And I feel like the Cam Akers discussion hopefully wasn't repetitive of what you've heard everywhere else. But if it was, blame Addison and his editing, because he took out all the good parts. That's what I think.
Yep.
So at Charles Chill FFB, Dynasty and Chill. Also, your other podcast, Chasing the Helmet, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, because it's FFPC season. So any people that are playing high stakes redrafts, make sure you check that podcast out. I would say check that podcast out anyway, even if you don't play in FFPC leagues, and even if you don't play in high stakes leagues, because it's an excellent podcast. And then go become a patron of the Dynasty and Chill show, because it's awesome.
Thanks, Shane. Yeah. You got to plug your own stuff. Come on, you're doing something.
I'm at Shane is the worst. We also got a patron for Dynasty Trades HQ. It's awesome. People are awesome. I like talking in there, and Scott's patron about football more than I do on Twitter, because the talk's deeper. It's more refined.
It is.
Yeah.
This is where we can kind of just hang out and talk what's on our mind. But but patrons are good stuff.
All right, that's it.
And Chill, Trades HQ.
Yep. So, and make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channels if you haven't already. I don't know how you're watching this. And make sure you tell DLF how awesome Manic and Chill is, I guess. Yeah.
And how awesome we did when we rehearsed this ending, which was absolutely brutal. But
it was terrible. Hopefully Addison edits this. And that's all I got. And there's my kid walking into the frame. So that's enough.
Hello. Later, DLF.